Hello, good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Welcome to Double9 Radio. How are you doing today? It's Friday the 13th. I keep saying that, but it's Friday the 13th. What can I say? All this creepy stuff. But anyway, I'm going to let that go. Who do we have? I told you, ladies and gentlemen, we have some amazing guests on the show today. I'm so super excited. I'm sure you can tell from my voice as well. So we have them live. Who do we have on the show this amazing Friday?
Wow, what a welcome. What a welcome. I feel like I can sense the red carpet, everything. Thank you so much. That was a very generous welcome. It's Vivian here. Hi, guys.
Okay, we got Vivian, and we got the other. I think we have another voice. I could hear another voice. I could hear another fantastic smile or laugh in the background as well. Who else do we have on the show?
Hello, Double9 and Double9 listeners. My name's Katie. I'm really pumped to be here and speaking to you guys tonight.
Fantastic, ladies and gentlemen. We have two amazing ladies on the show, two queens on the show. As you know, we always bring it fresh, always bring great guests on the show to you. So we have Vivian and Katie. We will get to know a bit about both ladies as well before we get on today's topic as well. I do apologize. We did have another gentleman who was meant to join us on the show, but for unforeseen circumstances, he couldn't join us as well. But we will be back, as you know. We're going to tell you a bit more. But ladies, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
You're most welcome. Okay, so I'll start off with Katie. Katie, I want to know a bit more about you. Unfiltered Productions, yes, you're part of the team, but who's Katie? Tell us a bit about Katie so our listeners can maybe, identify with who Katie is.
Well, I am Australian, living in the UK. Okay. I've known Vivian for 17 years as a friend and colleague. And then about 12 months ago, I met a really amazing guy called Des Mighty, and through him, a guy called Samuel. And we've formed a production company called Unfiltered Productions. And we've created a documentary that I'm really excited to say has actually won some awards. It's on the festival circuit. So we can kind of say that we are award-winning documentary filmmakers, which is really exciting.
Amazing, yeah.
And so we're talking to you tonight about conversations that we address within our documentary work.
Okay.
But I think to answer the question about who I am, I think this comes from like many, many years ago about wanting to discuss these issues and just wanting to talk to people. So I feel like I'm at this stage in my life where I'm doing what I always needed to be doing, and that's having conversations with people like you, Double9, about things that I feel really passionate about.
Amazing.
So this is kind of who I am, and it's sort of now my job, I guess.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Vivian, let's know about Vivian.
Hi. Yes. Wow. Some of your listeners may remember I came on before.
I know.
Yes.
You have been on the show previously. I remember. We had an amazing conversation. I remember that it went on for ages as well. Yes.
Oh, it was brilliant. No. Really good fun. And a lot of great feedback. I'm a serial entrepreneur. So when we last spoke, I have a podcast called Shades and Coffee, and I just finished season 1. Season 2 is coming up soon. Prior to that, I had a number of health and beauty businesses in central London, around sort of the Oxford Circus, Piccadilly Circus, that side in East London and Liverpool Street. Thankfully, I sold those November 2019. Ooh. A month later, I would have been up the proverbial without a paddle. Because obviously, exactly, it hasn't been fun for the new owners, who I'm still in contact with and just supporting as best I can. It hasn't been fun for any business, any bricks and mortar business at all. And prior to that, I was knee deep in finance as an analyst, chartered management accountant. So I just love creating, I love serving, I love problem solving, and like you, I wear quite a few hats. During the lockdown, I had the pleasure of joining the 4-piece that Katie just described, Unfiltered Production. And she described them well because Des Mighty, as his name suggests, is quite amazing. And Samuel, going to give him a shout out because he's listening to this from the hospital. But he's
hello, Samuel. We're missing you already.
I like how you say it, Samuel. That sounds like Lord of the Rings.
That's a Double9 way. Yeah.
Thank you. But he was jumping on the core regardless. That man has an S on his chest. I had to say, rest. But they're quite amazing. And you know what the strange thing is that it dawned on me at some point, just before everything opened up, like this year, that I'd only met them once. Because remember, I joined the team within lockdown, so we could only meet when things had, remember there was that period when things temporarily opened up and then it shut down again?
Yeah.
Exactly. So it was so weird. It was like, oh my God, we've actually physically met once, even though we're speaking every day. And so through this team, we were able to create this business where there's 3 levels to it. The first level is this kind of storytelling through documentary and short films. And as Katie said, that's doing really well. I'm really pleased about that. And that was when, you know, we were doing the whole lockdown with the Black Lives Matter, the George Floyd, every minute of the day they were showing these statistics about BAME, who's dying, and you know, it was like, oh my God. So we were knee deep in that, and that was hard. That was really hard. That was hard, and to give voices to the voiceless, to tell stories, untold stories, and to help those things, you know, come up to the surface is great. Documentaries, short films, great medium for that. But it did occur to us that there's more work to be done, and also the people that you're speaking to are not just the people who have these stories around, you know, being excluded or being discriminated against or having all these issues. The people that you need to speak to are the people who are, you know, offenders, or, you know, the people who are giving the treatment, who are the ones excluding, and so on and so on. So we thought that you're probably not going to speak to them just through documentaries. You're going to probably need to do some kind of workshopping, roundtabling, discussions, all that sort of stuff to reach out. So great to be here with you today, because we've chosen some hot topics for the next 3 sessions. And I want to speak to these people. I want to speak to people on all across the spectrum. You know, let's have these conversations.
Amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, I present to you the amazing queens that come on the show this evening, Vivian and Katie as well. I mean, we're going to be having a 3-part episode. Lucky you guys. Lucky guy. You know, I had to beg them to say, please come on the show. My listeners will want to, you know, get a bit of your exciting, you know, documentaries, and get to know a bit more about what you do. And as she mentioned as well, an award-winning, you know, production team as well, who are amazing. Hopefully we would have the rest of the team on the second episode. So we're going to be having a 3-part one. Today we are talking about a very hot topic. I mean, whilst you was talking as well, I started thinking about this topic. You know, we're talking about political correctness. Has political correctness gone mad? Because, I mean, Katie, Vivian, I want to say something now, because 2 things. I picked out 2 things while you guys were talking. But before we actually go into that, you know, let me ask from your perspective. Maybe I'll let Vivian go on this one. You know, what is the term political correctness? What does it mean?
Okay, I can give you a definition. There's several. If you go into Google, you'll find several. But essentially, it means using words that will not offend, exclude, or marginalize any group of people.
But the thing that, you know, that definition there, it's almost like you have to almost work on eggshells. Because the reason I say that, because when Katie mentioned, you know, I'm from Australia. Obviously, I knew she was from Australia, but I'm in this excitable mood. I'm so excited to have Katie on. And I'm thinking Australia. Then I'm thinking other things like, you know, like doing a, you know, Australian joke or Canadian or you know, with kangaroo or something, or, you know, how they say hello. But I'm thinking to myself, we're talking about political correctness. What if I offend someone? What if I say something out of the ordinary? You know, how will people take it? But now you define it as when you say something which doesn't exclude people. So how do you determine that? This is the thing. I mean, Katie, please come into this.
Yeah. So it's interesting what you're saying, Double9, because people could be offended by anything and everything, right? And I think a lot of the heat in the whole debate about political correctness at the moment, it's laced with a lot of fatigue. Like, people are really tired. They're really tired of the term. They're really tired of what they think is adjusting their behaviour. But on the broad sense, we're asking society to do a bit better. So we're asking society to think about others and think about how they're going to describe others and address them. And that can only be a good thing. That can only be a positive thing, because I feel like we're in a stage of growth. I feel like we're in a stage where we've learnt that actually we've been getting this wrong for quite a while, and we've got some work to do. And I think the political correctness thing, it can help people, give them the tools to actually sort of start describing and start addressing people in a more inclusive way. Now, the problem that I've got with the term is by calling it political correctness, it throws it into a basket of politics and religion. And I don't think that's where it should be. I think this is about humanity, and I think it's about morals and ethics. And what is the right way that you can address somebody or describe somebody that isn't excluding them and isn't marginalising them?
I mean, you're quite right. What is the right way? Who defines the right way? I mean, Vivian mentioned the term, BAME. I love that she actually spelled it out. She didn't actually say it, because for me, I don't even like that term. But it seems like you have to be politically correct to address people in that manner. I mean, Vivian, from your point of view, from what examples of political correctness do you think this needs to be spoken about, or this should not be politically, in this basket of political correctness? Because for me, one word about BAME, I don't like that. It's almost like them and you and them kind of thing.
I don't like that word. I don't know many people that do. I mean, if you go back to the definition, Double 9, if you have ever been excluded, marginalised, not just you, any of your listeners have ever been excluded, marginalised, they know what that feels like. It's not a nice feeling. So any initiative that aims to address that can only be a good thing. Otherwise, you're saying that it's okay to do that. But what's gone wrong, as Katie pointed out, is it's politicised. The term PC actually started out in the political arena, and then it keeps rearing its head in the political arena. I mean, Donald Trump won his campaign partly due to his stance on political correctness. I'm quoting him here. They have put political correctness above common sense, above safety, above all else. I refuse to be politically correct. That's Donald Trump. And when he talks about they, he's talking about the other politicians like Obama and Hillary Clinton and people like that. And he went out of his way not to be politically correct. So the politicization of it, I think, it's what's thrown people and upset people. And so going back to the term BAME, I think it's politicized. Like, who determines it? So the government decides they want to classify people in order to, spearhead various initiatives aimed at improving diversity, equity, and inclusion. They come up with this term. But if you look at the history of the term, Yomi, I'm going to drop something on you that's going to make all your listeners go, what the hell? We did an exercise with the company recently, Katie and I, with Channel 4 about this term, because they started this initiative, which obviously the government has sent out this directive, and lots of companies were jumping up and down thinking we need to do something. And we did this exercise with them where we flashed pictures of people and said, is this person within BAME or not? We called it to BAME or not to BAME. That's the question. And we showed white people, like lots of different white people. They were like, no, not BAME. And the only people that they put in BAME was the black man, who's clearly BAME, and a Japanese lady, And at the end, we told them, everyone you've just seen now is BAME. They were like, get the hell out of here. How can they be BAME?
Yeah.
We broke it down. Katie, break it down for Double 9 so he understands.
Okay. So this is a little bit like the political correctness thing. The term BAME has evolved. So actually, the current definition of BAME is white British or anybody else. So when we did this exercise and research for Channel 4, I discovered that I was BAME.
Oh.
Now, as a white Australian woman, I wouldn't identify myself as BAME, because I know I'm in a really privileged background position because I'm a white woman. So I would never do that. And in order for me to then be in that category, what does that category mean? So you're white, British, or you're everyone else. And the argument about BAME is, well, we need to have a term because we've got to identify what particular challenges certain ethnic groups face so that we can best address them. So that's really key. But by throwing me in there, that muddies the waters because, I'm not suffering because of my race. So it muddies the waters. So it was a really it's an interesting place where we land with BAME. But I think, Double 9, you brought up a really good point. You said, who determines?
Yeah.
Who determines it? Now, what's really interesting is the problem I've got is when the wider community determines something's offensive and it's not coming from that particular group. A lot of the argument with BAME was that terminology was not created by anybody that existed within that group. Now, something really interesting happened fairly recently with the local council in the east of England. They said they wanted to change the terminology for their weekly meetings. And they didn't want to use the term brainstorming because brainstorming would be an offensive term for epileptics.
Right.
So they were going to then shift their language to incorporate the term mind showers. Now, my argument for that, Double Nine, was the epileptic community consulted? Were they the ones making that choice? Were they ones that said, actually, brainstorming really triggers us and we don't like the term? So this, then what happens is, the problem I've got with it, it's weaponizing the term trigger. Because then what happens is that when the term trigger really needs to be used, so for example, if the epileptic community is finding that term triggering, like it's just like, then all hell breaks loose. So I think that's a really interesting example that you brought up. Who determines it? So can we give the people that are affected by these issues the voice and the choice?
And the last point I'll say on that, Double Nine, is that during the session that we ran, every person of colour there, every person of colour said they did not like the term BAME. And they were saying this to their colleagues because this was being implemented within that organisation. So Katie's right. Like, they're not asking for that category. How can you say you've come up with this term to help people, but the people you're helping weren't the ones asking for the term and don't feel that they're being helped? That's where it goes wrong.
You just blew my mind, because when Katie defined BAME and said, she can be classified as, part of BAME, I didn't know that. I just thought it was, a term used to describe, the minority, the black people, Asian people. I thought it was just that. And now you tell me that it's inclusive of that. But the thing here is... So
exactly. So you tell me, when they were showing for how many months, every single day, several times a day, flow charts and pie charts and, pixelated whatnots about all the black people, the BAME that were dying. Remember during the early days of COVID?
Yeah.
And all my family members were having a heart attack and running for cover. It's just like, they're collecting data that makes no sense. They're collecting data. In fact, during that session, there was a person on that session who was responsible for the collation of the data. And as a result of our research, they said, oh my God, I'm part of the BAME community. And they didn't know that beforehand. Like Irish travellers. Because remember, the B is clearly black. The A is clearly Asian. But when you talk about Asian, I mean, you're throwing someone from China, India, Mauritius, Indonesia. You're throwing them all into the same pot. And then the ME is minority ethnic. So who's minority ethnic? Katie's minority ethnic.
Exactly.
Irish traveller is minority ethnic.
Okay.
It's a nonsense.
It is. Okay, but I want to take us a bit back now, because I asked a question, where did this start? Where was the origin of political correctness? Because if you look back, say 20 years from now, or 20, 30 years back, and look at some of the, comedians back in the day who would do jokes about, black people, who would do jokes about Mexicans, or, all sorts of different, tribes, or even black people. Or, I mean, I think spit in the image was something that people frowned at some point as well. I mean, so what caused this change? Why was this sudden mindset? And you used the term weaponized, which I think, yes, people kind of like weaponize words. You gave it a good example about brainstorming. I mean, brainstorming, you're having a conversation. You want to, come together and get ideas. And someone is saying is going to affect, a different kind of, a different group of people. I mean, why do people suddenly, reuse words and kind of like make them mean something else? Because 20, 30 years ago, again, this was the norm. So what changed between then and now? I mean, Katie, I don't know if you want to come into that.
Yeah, so I think you've brought up a couple of really interesting issues. When it comes to comedy, I think we can still make fun of not maybe of each other, but obviously a couple of years ago on Britain's Got Talent, there was a man of colour in the finals, and he was brilliant. And most of his set about the fact is that he's got an African background, and it was hilarious. It caused issue. There was a whole bunch of stuff in the news about Alicia giving him the golden buzzer, and she did that because she was of colour, and all of that hoo-ha. Now, it's hilarious what he says, Double Nine, but that's got to come from him. I can't get up on the stage as a white woman and start making jokes about the African community and the African culture. So we can still have a laugh, because there's still a lot to be had, and there's still a lot of fun in that. There's still a lot of enjoyment to be had, but it's got to go back to the right place, and it's got to come from that community themselves. And I think that's what a lot of the fear is with political correctness is, are we not allowed to laugh anymore? Are we always going to offend somebody if we do laugh?
You're right. I mean, the thing is, I find it shocking, that, yes, in some aspects, you mentioned Donald Trump. Donald Trump, I think, I'm trying not to use some horrible words there, but Donald Trump, he's got issues where he needed to win an election, and he wanted to do it, fight, dirty, say all sorts, and kind of like exploit some certain deep feelings of some individuals within the American society, and you're almost giving them a platform to express, very negative views. But people would say, and I think he used political correctness as a weapon in a way. I didn't think he stood up saying that, I want to be not politically correct. I don't care. And I think he used the opportunity to say really nasty things. I think that's another example we can look at where, people, trying to say, oh no, I want freedom of speech. Yes, you can have freedom of speech, but I don't want to kind of like model up the whole thing, but does political correctness hinder freedom of speech? Vivian, what do you think?
I mean, the thing with Donald Trump, I think he judged the mood of the nation correctly. I'm all about things coming up to the surface. One of the issues I have with political correctness is that if a person can't say how they feel respectfully, then there's a problem for me. You think back to children, in your childlike innocence. Any of you that have children know this. A child will point at something and say, "Mummy, Daddy, what's that? What's that?" I remember the first time I saw, for instance, an albino. So I'm Nigerian, born in Nigeria. So I'm British and Nigerian. I remember the first time I saw my cousins, they were albino, and I'm pointing at them, just looking at them. What's that? It's done totally innocently. And then they explained to me, like, what had happened and, why their skin and their eye colour and their hair colour is like that. And I'm learning. You're like a sponge. You're learning, and you're always learning. I remember the first time I came to London, and we drove through, I think it's called Stamford, and I remember seeing for the first time what I now know are Hasidic Jews. And I'm an adult now, by the way. And I asked, like, oh, why are they dressed like that? And then it was explained to me, and my lawyer is from that community now. And it was only through being able to ask questions openly, honestly, respectfully that I could learn. What I find now is that there's some situations where I'm nervous about asking what actually is a very innocent and well-meaning question. And that's where it goes wrong. So, and also, I'll give you an example. I mentioned I had a business that I sold. I was told that this VIP was coming to visit, and I was told that they were non-binary. Now, I can't keep up. I don't know if any of you can keep up. All these
just
new
open
terms
a can of worms there, but let's go. Let's go.
Thank you. So I said, what do you need me to do? They said, I cannot use he or she, blah, 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 blah. I said, okay. So basically, I briefed the team. This person cannot use he or she. I asked for the name of the person several times, and it wasn't given. So I thought it'd be easier if I just called them, the name rather than they. Yeah. And the person arrived, and this person was presenting to me like a woman, right? Presenting to me like a woman. And I came over, I was very friendly, offered them refreshments and and then we were waiting while they were choosing the treatments they wanted. We were ready to take them down to enjoy the treatments. And then the person said, oh, can I use, I need to go to the toilet. And I just said, the lady is that way. I got a look like I could freeze a person. I actually got a complaint at the end of it. Now, Yomi, I'm 46 years of age, and I've been saying the ladies, the gents, you might say the bathroom, whatever. I'll just say what was naturally in my vocabulary. There was no intention to offend, and I prepped myself and the team, and it just simply came out. So for me to then get this backlash where the person is upset, this is where it goes wrong. Because there's a learning curve. You can't just decree from today onwards you're going to call this person they and expect the whole world to be able to just change their language 100%. Overnight.
100%.
Thank you.
100%. I really want to touch on that topic, but before we actually move on to that, because that's such an exciting topic, we need to address and have perspective. And I know Katie has her own perspective on this one, but before Katie comes and tells us a perspective on the binary thing and she, he, ha, I want to know, Katie, do you think political correctness, restricts freedom of speech from your perspective?
Yeah, so I think it goes back to how I feel about weaponizing the term trigger. So there's a difference between free speech and hateful speech. And I think that that's something that we're only just beginning to understand. And I think what you said about Donald Trump, what he did is he completely monopolised and capitalised on the fact that people were so fatigued by the term political correctness. And I think that what we've really got to start understanding is there's a big difference between free speech and hate speech. And I think we've all, for the three of us, for very different reasons, have been at the end of hate speech, most likely. And that's what I think the difference is. Is it's okay to have varying opinions. Vivian and I have varying opinions, but we can do that respectfully. And we can also learn from each other. And the problem that I've got is that it's a hate speech disguised as free speech. And that's something that I'm not prepared to digest, and that's something that I'm convinced is going to hold us back in our growth of understanding people and getting to a much better place where we really understand inclusion and what that means and what that looks like. So that's what I feel about the argument between political correctness and free speech. In most cases, Double 9, we're not talking about free speech, we're talking about hate.
Fantastic. Okay, on that note, we're going to go for a short break and be back to talk more to this amazing, fantastic ladies. I think I hope I'm politically correct calling you ladies. Is that good?
Can you please address me as they?
They. Oh my gosh, just changed now. Anyway, stay locked on, stay locked in. We shall be back on the other side to get more from our fantastic lady and day. It's your host Double9 on Double9 Radio. Hello, it's Double9 Radio again. It's 1842, 1308, 2021. Oh my gosh, I got some amazing, lovely ladies. You know what? Because we're talking about political correctness, I'm actually watching what I say now. We got a lady and they, she said, on the show this evening as well. We have Vivian and Katie from the Unfiltered Productions team. Amazing team as well. We do have all the guys, a part of the team. They're not with us present, but hopefully they'll be back on the next episode of this amazing show we have today. Ladies, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Hope you're having a great time.
Yes, thank you. I've been called many things. Rarely a lady, but thank you. I'm trying to behave.
Okay, so we're talking about political correctness, as we mentioned earlier as well. We defined what the term was and also gave some examples, which was that. But I think just before the break, Vivian described our cousins as albino. I mean, it's like I can't even say the word now. It's Friday the 13th. Don't jinx me. It's albino. That's what she said. And I don't know. Some hair went up. I'm thinking, is that the right term to say? I mean, Katie, what do you think?
What I just said to my dear friend and colleague was that you called your cousin an albino, but actually your cousin is a person with albinism. I think it's okay to say an albino rabbit. I think that's probably okay. But I think that the issue that I've got, and actually Viv and I have discussed this before because both Vivian and I have siblings with disabilities and have experienced maybe a lot over the years from people potentially not using the right terminology or approaching our siblings in the right way. And one thing that I really dislike is having the disability come before the person. So that Down syndrome, for example, and it's like, no, that's a person with Down syndrome. And I think these are really good moves. These are excellent examples when we talk about political correctness because we're putting the people first before anything else.
Right.
And so all I said to my dear friend and colleague was, your cousin is a person with albinism.
Right.
Yes, and I know this. I know they're a person with albinism. Now, the thing, Yomi, that Kate and I talk about is that you shouldn't get shot down because you make a mistake. So I'm giving you an example of my 5 or 6 year old self. Remember I said childlike innocence, and I pointed, and I used the words that came out of my mouth when I was that age, if that makes sense. Now, anybody who's, my era, that age, then that's kind of what you would have said then.
Yes.
Yeah. And also, I'm in Nigeria at the time. That's kind of what you would have said then. So I'm trying to tell you a story from the past and tell it sort of as accurately as I can using the words. So when I tell that story within that context, Katie's very understanding and she's very well marinated in these sorts of issues. So she pointed it out to me, but she did it in a very kind and understanding way. And I took it.
Yeah.
But the point is, if I was on social media, I'd be shut down. In fact, our next session is cancel culture. I'd have been cancelled. And that's where it goes wrong, because people should just try to understand why you're saying what you're saying. And if they understand that, they say, oh, okay, you're describing your 5 or 6 year old self. As she pointed out, I have 2 disabled siblings. One has a physical disability and one has autism, you know. And so, and you're right, Katie. They are not their disability. They are people with the disabilities. But even growing up, you know, the point you made about people being offended on behalf of, of other people, we were often being told this, that, and the other. And my brother, and he has cerebral palsy, was like, that doesn't offend me, you know. Sometimes we'd be talking, you know, maybe on a bus or whatever, and someone would get offended at something that I had said to him or one of my other brothers had said to him. And Anthony, he turned around and, you know, and his speech was impaired greatly. And he's like, butt out. It's just not an issue for him. So this goes back to your point about who decides. People just need to kind of calm down. And if they really want people to learn, to grow, you know, to go in the right direction, well, shooting them down at every single time that they make a mistake is not the way. That doesn't work in your private life. That doesn't work in a marriage. It doesn't work in a family situation.
Yeah.
It doesn't work across nations.
Do we think
so they need to find a different approach?
Yeah, sorry about that. Do we think social media has, you know, a great impact on how people react to certain, you know, conversations, as you mentioned, you know, on the bus, or if you put this albino thing online and you'll be shot down? Do you think, you know, a lot of people kind of like follow suit on when someone says, oh, this is actually wrong, and people just follow, oh yeah, it must be wrong, that, you know, 20 people have said it's wrong, so it must be wrong. Do we think social media has contributed to this craziness around political correctness?
Yeah, it massively has, and I think we can go into this a lot more next week. I think it massively has. I think the thing that I find ironic about all of this, and Viv just brought it up with her brother, is there is so much talk about what's offensive to certain groups and that they'll be triggered by A, B, and C. And what it suggests to me is that people or the wider society think that these groups are really fragile and weak. And my head spins about that. And it happens a lot in the trans, like with trans knowledge, like trans terminology on social media. People are saying this, that, and the other, and you have to say this and you have to say that because you're going to trigger them and upset them. If anybody knows any transgendered people, they're nails. They've got it. They can hack it. They've grown up and lived in a world that doesn't accommodate them. So they're really hardcore. They're nails. They're really tough people. So when you've got all of these people online talking about what you're allowed to say and not allowed to say, and that you're going to trigger them and it's going to be very hurtful and upsetting to them, it's like Vivian's brother. They're really tough. They're okay. They just want to crack on. And that's where kind of I have a problem with the social media, is then it explodes, then it gets crazy. And then I just think what it does is it prevents our learning. It prevents the real growth that we need to have.
It's a complete distraction. It's like a magician's trick. Like the word you mentioned, Yomi, BAME, B-A-M-E. You have all these hot debates about it, but actually the conversation should be about what are the issues you're trying to address and tackle, and how do you tackle those issues? Like, let's get away from the word. The word is like immaterial. and whilst we're having these big hot debates and arguments about the word, those issues still exist and get worse because now we're getting even more polarized. Fantastic. I mean, I found out recently that if I'm talking to somebody, say you're a fashion show, for instance, you're looking at people who are wearing, you know, nice clothes, and you're asked your opinion about an outfit, you can't use the word flattering or slimming because it's offensive, because flattering is something about, you know, them being, you know, less fat, and I can't keep up. So I do understand when people feel that way. But even with all of that, I still think in terms of what, you know, we're trying to achieve in ensuring that people are not excluded, marginalised, you know, that's really important work. That's really important work.
It is. Okay, now let's look at it from the other side. And what I mean by that is, you know, we talk about that. You gave a good example around the binary thing, which maybe for me, I still need more education on that. I mean, I'm admitting that now. And you mentioned about the you know, this new thing you have, even on LinkedIn now, people are putting she, her, he, him, all this stuff kind of thing. And it's more like, you know, you're in with it, you know, you're in with what's happening, you're politically correct, you know, you're in with what's going on kind of thing. But if you're not trying to follow the trend, does that make you politically incorrect?
Yeah, this is a really interesting one, Double Nine, and I think we can dive deeper into it next week.
Okay.
And I think it sort of links back to let people decide. So people have got to decide who they are and how they need to be referred to. And so if this blanket recommendation needs to come in, that in order to not cause offence, we all have to be non-binary, then we're all going to have a problem with that. Because, Double Nine, I don't need to know you for very long to know that you're very strong and in touch with your masculinity, yeah?
Yeah.
And I know you're not going to be too up for the suggestion that you would have to neutralise that in regards to how you present yourself.
No.
To kind of get into this new way of like non-binary language. So my argument is, I think we need to be educated about it. I think we need to be aware, but the blanket suggestion that we are going to have to all neutralise genders, I think it is radical and it's unhelpful. It's unhelpful. So, there's been some really great examples of parents supporting their children as teenagers going through transitioning and kind of saying, oh, okay, we got it wrong. So we thought that we had a daughter, we've got a son, we got that wrong. So now we're moving forward and we're moving ahead. And I think if we just go with what we think we've got, so if we just go with like when kids are young and we think that we've got daughters and sons, but then if we get it wrong, then we adjust our behaviour. I think the blanket recommendation that everything needs to be neutralised, the pushback on that is going to be so extreme that the people that really need it, the people that really need that support and that awareness and understanding and acknowledgement are going to get lost in that sea of craziness.
I mean, I love the way you answered that question, and I love your contribution to that, because you talk about the neutral blanket. Yes, got to be a huge pushback on that, because we considering how the United Kingdom is. We have loads of different ethnic groups in this country who come from different backgrounds, and some things are almost alien to where they've come from. And we have examples in some schools who are saying boys can wear skirts. I don't know. Maybe we can touch more on that on the next episode as well. Because for me, I don't know. It's like, why can't we just be normal? Okay, now we okay, maybe I should have said.
Why can't they just be normal?
Maybe I should have said no more. Maybe
you need to look back at UK history or even global history, and you'll see. I'm sure you've seen paintings of men with huge wigs and makeup and very tight 3/4 length.
Are we going back now? Are we going back in time? Is this what we do? And choosing what we want to have in the present. Because
my point is that cultures and language evolves. That's why we don't speak like Shakespearean times. I heard some young people, I like to think I'm young, let me just start by saying that, but I heard some proper young people talking the other day. I was like, oh my God, I need a thesaurus, I need a dictionary.
Oh yeah.
Because you can hit, thank you. You have kids, you know what I'm talking about. So you can see those changes happening. And the thing with, I don't like the term political correctness, it needs to change. It's about ethics and things like that, values, all that sort of stuff. So I think that the term is confusing in itself, but what people have to understand is just like everything evolves, it's a journey, not a destination. So when people think, God, more changes, well, that's life. It's continually changing. When you die, that's when you cease to see changes. Yeah, and we have to try to be open-minded. There's many things I know today that I didn't know yesterday, I didn't know last year. I'm sure it's the same for you. So if we look at, say, the gay community, and if you're listeners, and if you can be really honest, I'm sure either you've had views or you have heard views from your parents, your friends, your people in your community, that that now you realise is not acceptable because you know better. So you only do better when you know better. So I know people who definitely thought that a gay person maybe should go and talk to their priest or go and get some psychotherapy and or take a tablet and get themselves sorted. And when they believed that at the time, they really believed that, whether it's religious, cultural, whatever, but they know better now. Because they've been exposed to people, and they know now that it's not a choice. Actually, people are born this way, and you can sometimes see it in the animal kingdom, and it's that sort of thing. So when these new things come out that kind of spin your head, like when you say non-binary or boys wearing skirts, I get it. I get that reaction because you see it time and time again. You've just seen it when people were getting more and more exposed to to gay people. but keep an open mind, because we don't know what we don't know. And if one of your children, ends up turning around saying,
one of their children,
Dad,
one of their children. Please.
One of your children.
One of your children.
my dad was saying the same thing about, at the time.
But I hear what you're saying.
People.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, keep an open mind.
Okay, yeah, we want to keep an open mind. We want to do that. I don't have an issue with, someone being gay or being lesbian, LGBT. I don't. But what I struggle with sometimes it feels like it's being shoved right in your face that, you must accept it. You must, this is the way, this is the way or no way. I give a typical example, somewhere in Canada, there was a Canadian bill passed, I think, a couple of years ago, where people were forced to use certain adjectives to describe a certain group of people. So it's free speech being taken away from them. That if you don't use that adjective, that means you're not conforming, you're breaking the law. That's where I have an issue with. It's okay to accept people. Yes, everyone is human. Everyone has a choice to be gay or straight. You do have that. But what I kind of struggle with is, like, yes, you talk about acceptance. You talk about being open minded. Yes, I am. But don't put it too much in our face. I don't know, Katie. What do you think?
Oh, you've just said so much there, Double 9. It's not a I don't believe it's a choice. I don't believe your sexuality is a choice. Double 9, you couldn't choose to be anything other than a straight man. You just couldn't, because that's who you are. So I don't think that it's a choice. But the one thing that I know that I'm sort of hyper aware of is that when we ask society for change and they don't budge, people get really angry and people get really vocal, and things can get a bit radical. Now, you just said something really interesting to me that I hear a lot when I try and have conversations with people about race. So you just said, why do they have to keep shoving it down our throats? Or why is it so amplified? Why is it so out there? This is what people thought about the Sainsbury's ad presenting a family of colour at Christmas time. This is what people think about the BLM marches. Why do they have to keep shoving it down our throat? Why do we, in everything we're watching on TV, is there mixed race families? Why is there so many black people on television? When we need to make a change that's desperately overdue and desperately necessary, people get angry, people get amplified because of the pushback. But we're not moving. We're still not going ahead. If we evolved and if we moved forward and if we got our act together, it would go. There would be no need for the pushback, because we would just know better, do better, and we'd crack on and get on with it. So what you said is a really interesting thing that I hear a lot from people when I try and have open conversations about the need for better understanding in regards to race. Amazing. They say the same thing. Why does it have to be shoved down our throat? Well, the reason is nobody's listening. We're not listening enough. Yes, change is occurring. Yes, we're doing better, but we're not doing good enough.
I'm so happy you said that, Katie. I'm so happy you said that, because as a white person, you're going to hear a lot of things that, that I might not hear when I'm in that room, if you know what I mean.
Correct, yeah.
So, and I've heard that a lot from a lot of my white friends. And it's good. I always believe in trying to, walk in another man's shoes in order to understand. And what she's done, Naomi, she's put you in someone else's shoes, because people are saying, oh, I'm fatigued. There's only 3% black people in this country. Why are we seeing black people, mixed race people all over the TV, everywhere? So, but you understand the need for that change. You understand that. And I think it's something similar that's going on here, if that makes sense. It might be a group that you don't identify with, that you don't quite understand, but you understand, because you are in that position. You're in a group that's marginalized, that's excluded, and you can see all the things that are happening in order to amplify those voices. And some people may take it all the way and get really, really radical. You're very open-minded, but people who are very, very radical, very, very angry, so you have to just try and keep the same kind of open-mindedness that you want other people to have when it comes to issues of race. You then have to do it for all the other, diversity, equity, inclusion issues as well.
Yeah, you're quite right. And you know what? When Katie was actually speaking and you came in as well, I just had almost like a eureka moment where, okay, Katie said that, she hears conversations, she's had conversations with people, maybe white people as well, and they saying this kind of things around the Sainsbury's ad, the BLM, and we're not privy to that. We don't hear that. But from our side as well, we're thinking, why is this happening? Why are they shopping? you know what I mean? So I think a bit of education is needed, a bit of on both sides, really, to come to a conclusion that, you know what, everyone matters. Everyone has, a reason for why they say what they say or why they think how they think. I think.
Of course, you're right. If you were born into a Muslim family, you think a certain way. If you're born into a Jewish family, you think a certain way. I think it's preposterous to demonize you or to demonize people because they just don't think the way that you think, because they are the sum total of all of their life experiences, everything that's brought them up to that moment. And only think about the computer program. You have to put in new data if you want a different output. So by having the conversation, by allowing the expression, by educating, that's the new data, that's the new experience. That person is given a chance to evolve. I think, was it Maya Angelou that said, know better, do better? I don't know if it was her. I love that phrase. A person can only do what they can do at that stage. Every individual person listening to this knows what I mean, because if you look at how you've evolved as a person, there are things I look back and I think, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. Did I really think that, believe that? Did I really act that way? And when I know better, I do better. And it's a continuum. I'm still learning.
Yeah, we're all still learning as well. I mean, I just had a message from one of the listeners saying, yes, Double9, say it, normal. I don't know, what is normal? It's relative, isn't it? What is normal? I mean, Katie, what is normal?
We did an exercise about this recently, about what's considered normal. And yeah, it's basically a white older male, I think, is what is considered normal. But I mean, we're the ones that dictate that, don't we, Double9? It's society that dictates that. So what's considered normal is what gets the most representation. Yeah. And that's not what normal is at all. That's not what normal is. That's not real life. It's what gets the most representation. It's what people get the most exposed to is what's considered normal. And also, too, if you fit into some kind of normal category, you're doing well, because life is easier. It's easier if you're considered normal. If you're outside of the remit of that for whatever reason, you will have challenges, because we've got a lot of growing to do. We're really, really behind on this kind of thing. But yeah, normal it's a loaded term.
It is a loaded term, and it's decided by by man, as in people. It's not, if you think about white is the norm or the gold standard. Heterosexuality is the gold standard. Able-bodiedness is the gold standard. Well-educated. The list goes on, and the further away you are from that, the worse your treatment, actually, the worse your lived experience is. But I always like to say to people, can you imagine, since the beginning of time and until the end of time, no two people, not even identical twins, will have the same fingerprints? Can you imagine? That's how amazing life is. We're so unique. So once you understand that, what makes you think that there's a normal? Why can't we all be beautiful in all forms of expression? And I think that's where we have to, get our minds. The exercise that Katie mentioned, I wanted you to put a picture up. I don't know whether you did it on your Instagram, of the carrots exercise.
Right.
So what you see in supermarkets now, and they're called ugly carrots or wonky carrots. They're given all these really not nice names. And these carrots are bent and misshapen and whatever. And the thing is, when we delivered this to this group of people, they were like, oh, no, there's something's wrong with those carrots. They're nutritionally deficient or something. And the carrots that they're used to seeing, these lovely, long, straight, perfectly, orange carrots, they didn't realize that's the standard that we have set, or the EU or whatever. But they're not, the other carrots are natural. They're how nature intended them. They grow that way because if they hit a stone or a pebble, they just move. And so when you're out in nature and you're the wonder and awe of the trees and the forest or the mountains, they're all jaggedy and bent and wonky and twisted. And you think, wow, this is incredible. This is beautiful. Why can't that translate into humanity and how we see each other? But we don't, because we set these standards, and anybody else who's outside of that just receives a really poor treatment. So with that in mind, if someone really, if someone tells you that they're gay, they're transgender, my position is that person is speaking their truth. I don't jump in and think, you're lying, you've made a choice. But they're trying to it's like me telling you my experience being a woman of colour, and it's horrible when people just sort of shut you down for that. And if you're not seen and you're not heard, that must be so painful. I think what you're describing, Yomi, is the people that kind of jump on the bandwagon. And I think that's what Katie alluded to. They muddy the waters for everyone. You know, when all these famous people are saying, oh, I'm now non-binary, it's just like, please, just shut up. You know, there's people out there who are really coming to terms with the fact that they're beginning to understand who they are. And you're just like silencing them and just making life hard for them because you're just like peeing everybody else off, you know?
You're right. Okay, I mean, with that, you know, you're quite right. Some individuals just jump on the bandwagon just because what is trending and they just want to be fashionable, which I think is quite, you say the word shut up as well. But political correctness on a whole, I mean, what effect is it having on the society? Positive, negative? What are your thoughts?
There's some instances where it's been wonderful. There's some instances where it's shown real growth. So, for example, using the term transgender instead of the term transsexual, because the transgender community is saying this isn't about sex. This isn't about some fetishism. This isn't about some, you know, what our sexual appetite is. This is our gender. So to move the term from transsexual to transgender is great. That's an excellent move. You know, how we describe people of colour now is better, or how we describe people in general is better. I think there's been some really great moves in the right direction. And also, too, what Viv said, it's like having the opportunity to learn. It's ever evolving and it's changing, but it's also being open to learning. The one thing the commitment that I make to myself is that whatever group of person is speaking, I want to listen, because I don't fit into that group, so I know nothing about their experience. So if they say to me, this is what I need you to describe me in this way, or I need this, then that's my job to listen, because who am I to say any different? I can't walk in their shoes. And I think that would be the best takeaway from political correctness, I guess, as a whole, although it's a loaded term, is can people just start listening to others, and then can we maybe adjust what we say and how we say it to be all-inclusive, because everyone would just be a load happier.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You're right. I mean, you're right. I'm blown away what I've learned this evening. And I think, you know, the most important thing, you know, you both highlighted this on the show this evening is, you know, getting that knowledge, you know, educating yourself, understanding that, you know, everyone has different points of views. You know, some do it respectfully, some not so respectfully as well. I mean, you know, Vivian gave a great example about the fingerprint. You know, everyone has different views and things. But the thing is, political correctness, sometimes it can be weaponized. Sometimes it can be positive on society, as Katie rightly pointed out. But you as an individual, what side are you on? Are you on the side of trying to get that knowledge? Are you on the side of trying to go against or use it as a weapon as well? The thing is...
Yeah. Sorry.
Please carry on. I was going to say, the thing is, you know, we all have to have a culture of acceptance, somewhat. Acceptance and understand, because lack of not accepting an individual or situation is because of lack of knowledge. So if we gain that knowledge, because I've been able to understand some certain things today. We talk about you know, I didn't even know the reason why they transferred transgender and transsexual. You explain that to me. You know, also, hopefully we're going to be talking about more around the binary factor, the she, he, her, you know, on the cancel culture on the next episode. But Vivian, yes, please carry. You was going to say something.
There's a phrase that I really love. I don't know if I'm paraphrasing it correctly, but, you know, what I want for other people is the same what I want for myself. You know, I grew up Catholic, and, you know, it's just like you treat other people how you want to be treated. And a lot of people fall short on this, you know, like, you know what you need. You want to be heard, you know, and so on and so on. And yet we don't want to hear other people. Now, I came to London as an adult to start my career because it was in finance. But prior to that, I was living in, you know, small towns of England where literally, you know, I'm the only black in the village is how I kind of describe it. And when you're not heard, when you're not seen, it's really painful. It's really painful. And I think because of that, I naturally gravitated to other people who I sensed were not heard, not seen. I didn't know at the time. Later on, as an adult, I look back and surprise, surprise, some of those they're gay. They're out now. They didn't even know they were gay back then during school. But they just knew that they were not heard, not seen, not understood, that sort of thing. So you have to really try to treat other people how you want to be treated. That's the basis. And the term political correctness I hate it. It's actually a term that I think it was 1793. That's how long ago that phrase started. 1793. And I said, in the political arena. And it's staying in the political arena, and that's the issue, and it's weaponized. So it's a lot of noise and distraction, basically, from the underlying, the underlying thing it's really trying to do is good. And you nodded, you said, yes, you understand it's a good thing to ensure that people aren't excluded or marginalized. It's a good thing. I can't think of anybody that doesn't think it's a good thing, So I think that's kind of where we need to go back to. And, call people out who are weaponizing it. Because, Katie, you're right. I agree with you. I think Donald Trump, he's a politician. He did what a politician is meant to do, check the mood of the country. And, and it said a lot about the country. So those things came to the surface, and it needed to come to the surface. But then you have those discussions. And to have those discussions, people need to be able to speak freely, not hate speech. But when they speak freely, remember, there's different generations of people talking. So the language that I use, like when I use the term albino, my parents will use a different language, and so on and so on. And the younger ones use a different language. So don't shoot people down for using words that they are used to, that they've grown up with, that's so ingrained in them. Instead, hear them out, ask them what they mean, because the meaning behind that word might not be, a negative thing. And then you've got an opening, you've got a dialogue where you can then come in with the education, like how Katie did with me, and they're all ready and willing to receive it because you're not attacking them and you're not judging them. So this is where I stand on it.
Fantastic. Katie, what is your point of view on that?
Well, the one thing I will add to that is it's like we are headed in the right direction because the younger generation have got their act together a heck of a lot more. So it's almost like they're going into a much more understanding and accepting place where they get really weirded out and kind of confused as to how maybe the older generation are dealing with this stuff. So I feel really hopeful. I feel really excited that we've got a young generation that kind of really have their act together.
Mm.
So in regards to the positivity, I think that, and I hate to say it, Oprah said something recently in an interview where they got really deep into this issue, and they were talking about an older generation that still has a lot of problems about race in America. And she said, well, they'll be dead soon, won't they? And it's a really crazy, radical kind of thing that she said. But the thing is that you've got some people that just will not learn. And I think what she was trying to say is they'll never learn because they don't want to and they don't see the need to. But the good thing is, linking back to Maya Angelou, I think the bulk of people are good, and I think they will do better when they know better. And I think the bulk of people kind of want like a better, more inclusive, happy society.
Amazing.
So
amazing.
Yomi, I just want to say, I just want to acknowledge you. I was really excited to come on the show because what I love about you is that, you speak your truth. This thing about, political correctness gone wrong or cancel culture, you take a big risk because you're out on air, you're recorded, and you just say what you feel. And that's good. This has been a great exercise in terms of, I want people to feel that they can just speak their truth. And in saying that, and in not being shot down and, cancelled and whatever, you have now said, that you actually learned something and your position has softened in some areas, like your eyes have been open.
Correct.
And that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. People should be able to come on and say, if they're homophobic or they're this or they have these racist ideas or whatever. My belief is, if you want to make positive change, you can't do it alone. You got the people you're trying to change are the people that you're meant to have the conversation with. How does the change happen? So this show is great, and I really commend you for your courage in just speaking your truth and encouraging your audience to speak their truth within their various arenas. You do it so respectfully, and I think that's what I'm sure some of the things you said, people listening might go, oh, or whatever, but you do it so respectfully that we're able to just really engage with you and really see kind of the essence of who you are, a good person, not like the enemy or this ignorant person.
Exactly.
So this is a great testament to the process that we've been describing for the past hour. So thank you for the opportunity.
Fantastic. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show, and I hope that we've been able to inspire one or two people who can spread the word as well. Yes, there's still a long way to go, as Katie pointed out as well. A lot of education, a lot of knowledge gain needs to be done for us to get to that place where we can be accepting of everyone. Also, share the point of view. I mean, I can't wait to have you back on the next episode of this amazing topic, which will be, Katie, can you tell what is that exciting topic we have on the next show?
So we're going to be talking about cancel culture, and I've got a really amazing quote for you on cancel culture, just to leave the episode into what we're doing next week. Cancel culture has become social media's courtroom, except everyone gets the death penalty.
Wow. I can't wait for that, because I think I got loads to say on that one as well. Ladies and gentlemen, you should. I'm sure you're going to be part of that. I want to say a big thank you to everyone who's been sending messages as well. Those messages of encouragement. Okay, I'll give a bit of shout out. We got Monica as well. We got Michael. We got Margaret. We got another Michael. We got another Esther as well. We got Vicky. We got Yemi. Thank you very much, everyone, sending in messages this evening. So I hope you've been able to learn a couple of things, because these amazing queens have come on the show. I hope I'm politically correct calling you queens. I hope that's okay. But yes, they come on the show.
Yummy, one request from me for the next episode is, please ask our listeners to don't be shy, get involved. Let us know your opinions. Throw in questions. You know what the topic is. We want to learn together. It's great us three having aha moments between us, but let's widen that circle. That's how you change the world. So please get involved.
You hear that there? She's challenged you, ladies and gentlemen. The Double9radio family, where you at as well. You're always hiding those behind those keyboards. I'm only joking. I'm being politically correct. You're not hiding. You're just engaging. What can I say? But it's always amazing to have everyone on the show. I want to say a big thank you to those amazing ladies. Join us again next week on the next episode, talking about the cancel culture. Have you been part of it? Are you judged on social media? Have you been judged on social media? Come and share your thoughts with these amazing ladies. Trust me, you don't miss the next show. Ladies, it's been wonderful to have you on the show. I hope maybe we can get the whole team back on the next show as well. I keep fingers crossed, all the bones crossed. Ladies, it's been amazing. It's been wonderful. Any parting words you want to say to our listeners out there before you go?
Just thank you so much, Double9. Thank you, Double9 listeners, for letting us come on and share this stuff with you. Really hope to hear your feedback for next week. And just want to say, Double9, thank you. Hats off to you for having these conversations.
Fantastic.
Yeah, ditto. And please spread the word. Anybody that you think get some value from this conversation, especially people who are really resistant. The thing about, our roundtable conversations is we want people from across the whole spectrum. We're not about just having like-minded people. We're not that kind of people. We want everybody to come to the table and have these conversations. So please spread the word if there's anybody at all that you think will find value.
Fantastic. It's been amazing. Keep it on date with us next week, Friday. Make sure you follow us on Instagram. A big thank you to everyone who tuned in this evening. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. But stay locked on, stay locked. And as you know, we're going to give you some fresh vibes. It's the weekend, Friday the 13th. Are you scared? I'm not scared. It's not creepy. It's wonderful. It's your host, Double9, on Double9 Radio.